His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of the United Arab Emirates, His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jabiri, the COP28 President, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I extend my sincere appreciation and congratulations to the United Arab Emirates for hosting the 28th UN Climate Change Conference. This gathering holds paramount significance as the threat of the climate change knows no borders and underscores our shared responsibility. We seem to talk about climate change as a future threat. However, Somalia, as a country on the front line of the devastating effects of the extreme climate events, it is a reality we live with. As I stand here before you, my country is facing a humanitarian crisis which we are desperately trying to respond to because of severe floods resulting from El Niño effect. These floods have so far affected more than 2.4 million people, displaced over 1.1 million, resulted in the loss of 120 human lives and thousands of livestock and 42,000 acres of crops washed away. This is as of yesterday, and the El Niño effect is still going on. This is not one-off event to highlight the vicious cyclical nature of climate change impact on countries at the front lines like Somalia. I must note that today's victims of these devastating floods are sadly the survivors of yesterday's droughts. Only a year ago, Somalia barely averted famine following consecutive failed rainy seasons. What's transpiring in my country today is not unique to us. The destructive developments in Somalia are part of the common challenges faced by many of the agro-pastoral communities in the least developed countries. Tens of millions of vulnerable communities in sub-Saharan Africa nations bear the disproportionate and most depleting impact of climate change-induced shocks, despite contributing the least to global greenhouse gas emissions. In many African countries, where the governments are grappling with state building, violent extremism, debt burden, limited fiscal resources, the impact of climate change compounds the fragilities hindering sustainable development goals. As we continue to wage our successful fight against terrorism at home, frequent climate shocks have at times slowed down our combat operations to uproot the terrorists in Somalia today. For a country struggling with debt stress and limited access to finance, fighting terrorism and responding to a humanitarian crisis at the same time is akin to impossibility. The case of Somalia is a clear demonstration of the intricate linkage between climate change, peace, and security. Ladies and gentlemen, despite these challenges, Somalia and Africa at large, with our rich diversity, hold the promise of a prosperous future and solutions to the climate crisis. My country is blessed with a long coastline in the mainland Africa, abundant untapped natural resources, vast arable land, a promising climate for renewable energy, a thriving private sector, and a young workforce with right investment can stand the impact of climate change and can contribute to the global climate solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we have revised and enhanced our climate ambitions in the nationally determined contribution. We have provided clearly defined adaptation and mitigation targets, and we now aspire to reduce our emissions by 30% at the end of this decade. Our climate targets are backed with the highest levels of political commitment The estimated investment required to achieve these targets are more than $16 billion. Meeting these climate commitments surpasses our current capacity. The current arrangements fail to the Global South to guarantee fair and meaningful access to climate finance, climate justice, operationalization of loss and damage, among other important climate subjects. We join our vote to call for the need to reform the international financing institutions to ensure just, equitable and meaningful access to climate finance and investment. We join the call for the developing nations to honor their commitments to the most affected nations, especially in supporting our climate actions, means of implementation. We also call on world leaders gathered here to agree on the operationalization of the loss and damage fund agreed in Sharm el-Sheikh last year. The 1.5-degree global target seems to be far more elusive than an actual realistic global target. We must ensure to continue building on the momentum and the promises made at the previous climate summits. Somalia and Africa should not be perceived merely as victims of climate change. We can and should be part of the solution, as emphasized in the African leaders' Nairobi Declaration on Climate Change and Call to Action. We must find a solution that's equitable and fair, and let this summit be a pivotal moment in creating a more prosperous, greener and fairer world throughout. I thank you.